Hey guys, MichaelBtheGameGenie here, and today on Video Game Nostalgia, Halloween Havoc continues, as we're going to be taking a look at horror movie video games, Part 2.
Goodbye.
That's right guys, today Halloween Havoc continues on my channel, as we're going to be looking at even more video games based on horror movies. That's right, horror movies like we used to rent on VHS back in the 80s and 90s. This is Horror Movie Video Games Part 2. For those of you that missed the first video, Horror Movie Video Games Part 1, and you want to go back and watch it, well, it's probably going to be posted in a card up in one of the corners of the video here, so you can go and click on that now and then come back to this video. Please come back. Or you can wait to the end of this video and it'll probably show up in the end card title there, so you can click on the video there and go back and watch that. Do that as well. I'd really appreciate that. Anyways, these are horror movie video games for people who didn't watch the first video. That means a video game based on a classic horror movie that somehow made it on a 16-bit system, 8-bit system, or even before, and we got to play it at home. We're going to start with one of my favorite horror movie franchises of all time, and a great game on the NES. 1, 2, Freddy is coming for you. Man, I was absolutely terrified of Freddy Krueger as a kid, and it just blew my mind that he also had a game on the Nintendo Entertainment System. A Nightmare on Elm Street is a game based on the film franchise of the same name by New Line Cinema. The game was published by the dreaded Rainbow of Terror, LJN, but it was actually developed by Rare. You know, Battletoads, Donkey Kong Country, and all that good stuff. So it's a good game, right? Well, I really think so, but I may be in the minority. I say that the game is based off the film series, as it isn't tied directly to any of the films or characters, but if you take a look at several elements in the game, you can make an educated guess which film it takes most of its inspiration from. First, let's look at the stage settings in the game, as the first 3 levels are just random houses and could really represent any movie, but the 4th stage is a junkyard that is very closely tied to where they found Freddy's bones in the 3rd movie. Next, let's talk about the bones themselves, as the whole purpose of this game is to go from location to location collecting Freddy's bones to proceed. This again ties into the 3rd movie, as laying Freddy's remains to rest was the only way to defeat Freddy in the movie. Last but not least is when you shift into the dream section, you can collect power-ups that will give you dream powers, such as this athletic man that changes your jump and allows you to throw javelins. The yin yang allows you to turn into a ninja, complete with throwing stars and the ability to do jump kicks. And last but not least, it's the magic hat that allows you to turn into a wizard or wizard master and throw blasts and float in the air while jumping. You essentially become a dream warrior, so can we all just agree that it's Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3? I asked, is this a good game earlier, and I legitimately think so, though I know it might not be everybody's cup of tea. I get it, it isn't straightforward, like even getting into the first house is a mystery. I mean, it's one of the first 3 houses every time, but it's completely random. Next up is the bone collecting, and everybody seems to think this is super lame. I mentioned earlier how this makes perfect sense in terms of storyline, and I mean, it's not like a collect-a-thon isn't something we aren't familiar with in Rare games, but I get it. I would be pretty pissed to make it to the end of one of these levels only to find out I was stuck because I missed a bone and now needed to backtrack to find it, and they blend into the background sometimes too, so it's super possible. Last but not least is the jumping, and saying the mechanic is floaty is really just being nice. Those critiques aside, I do still believe there is something special here. I mean, the game isn't your typical action platformer and has a pretty dope and well thought out concept that should pique your interest a little. How about the challenge, as while it doesn't have unlimited continues, it's incredibly beatable and with a fair and respectable challenge. Well, what about video game music? Because David Wise did the music for this one, and it is badass. And I mean badass. Especially the street stage. In fact, you are listening to a cover of it right now by the great Epic Game Music. Do me a personal favor and give it a try. Worst case scenario, you played a cool horror themed game during Halloween. Halloween by John Carpenter hit theaters in 1978 and really was the catalyst to the 1980 horror movie boom. Was it because it spoke to the youth of the time and brought horror back into the mainstream? Well, maybe, but mostly it just kind of showed that studios can make a really cheap movie in this genre that would generate a return of almost 20 times their investment, and we were off to the races. As a kid, I had no idea that someone had made a video game off of this franchise, nor did I know just how batshit crazy it is. But you know what? It's also kind of fun. So disclaimer here, if you couldn't already tell, this is an Atari 2600 game, so it's extremely simplistic both in its gameplay mechanics and graphical appearance, but don't let those things dissuade you from playing this game if you are a horror movie fan or just like weird score chasers, because there is a lot of value here. Actually, maybe even a little shock value too. This game does not screw around and gets down to business right away, meaning that there isn't really a title screen. Nope, it just shows 2 floors of the house where the game will mostly take place, and the colors change several times, while an Atari 2600 rendition of the iconic John Carpenter Halloween theme blares through your TV speakers. I think this is an homage to the end of the first movie, and the theme played as we saw different rooms in the house, but I may be reaching there. The game starts and you play as a babysitter character, and your mission is to avoid Michael Myers at all costs and protect the children as you guide them to one of the safe rooms in the house. Each child you get to a staircase will give you points. You can also score points by finding the knife and stabbing Michael. I mean, I think that is Michael Myers anyways. While I can't make out the iconic mask, he seems to be wearing some sort of one-colored jumpsuit, and it's Atari, so let's give them a break. Anyways, what happens if you don't avoid Michael? Well, he kills you, and boy is it something. He decapitates you, and you run across the room headless with blood spurting out of your neck hole. Wow, right? You had to get the kids to follow you, and you do so by holding them with the action button to have them mimic your movements. If Michael gets close to the kids, well, he kills them too, and you see all the gory details. It's so crazy to see kids actually get murdered in a game. I know in Friday the 13th on the NES, they allude to Jason killing kids, but here you straight up witness the kids' murder. I guess video games weren't nearly as censored as they are nowadays, and if you ever wanted to see a kid get murdered in a video game, Halloween on the Atari 2600 is the game for you. Realistically, this is a very simple game, but also really fun and addictive. Not to mention, it does a great job of representing the movie, which is crazy considering just how basic this game is, that it actually recreates the experience of the movie better than any of the other horror movie games we will be discussing in these videos, regardless of system or power. Honestly, Halloween on the Atari 2600 is a little bit of a marvel in that respect, but it's also just a really stupid game that's a bunch of fun for horror movie fans such as myself. So, I was really on the fence about including this one, as I always considered Bram Stoker's Dracula more of a mainstream movie and wouldn't put it in the same category as, say, Friday the 13th or Texas Chainsaw. After going back and forth on it, I decided to give in and not be a snob, and despite this movie's big budget and mainstream appeal, it should rightly be categorized as a horror movie, so I can include Dracula as a horror movie game, and honestly, I am really glad I did. I honestly have never played Bram Stoker's Dracula on the Nintendo Entertainment System before recording gameplay for this video. For a couple reasons, actually. First off was I actually owned this game on another system growing up and didn't really love that version of the game, so I assumed I wouldn't like this version either. What system, you ask? Well, tune in to part 3, wink wink. Secondly was that this is actually a pretty uncommon and expensive NES game. I actually only came across it once in all of my travels and have always been disgusted in myself that I passed on it at the time because it was only $15, and when I price checked it later that day realized that it was a $100 game, and nowadays goes for around $200. I know that the reason I never bought it was the same as the reason I gave for number 1 why I've never played it before, but it doesn't make it hurt any less. Well, thankfully today, through the power of emulation, I am finally able to enjoy this game. I do say enjoy because this game is surprisingly good, like I am really regretting not getting this sooner. You play as Jonathan Harker here, and you start the game daytime in Transylvania. First thing I want to talk about is how well you control. It just feels really good. Surprisingly competent mechanics here from Sony, which I would never expect. One thing that I did find very Nintendo about this game is coming across these item blocks in the game, and what is on the item block? Is that a question mark? Ha! Like straight out of Super Mario Bros, we have question mark blocks. Maybe it wasn't as iconic back then, but it strikes me as weird here. You move to a wall section and can drop the block down by doing a jumping pounce by pressing down on the controller. I didn't know this at first and thought I was just stuck and the game was kinda broken, but nope, you just press down and you can make the block drop. I eventually made it to the end of the second stage and took on the game's first boss, which is the Shadow of Dracula. Again, I was impressed by how good this boss fight was. It did a great job recreating the iconic image of Dracula's impending shadow from the movie. I didn't get much further than that, but I really have to say I had a lot of fun playing this game. Not just because I'm a huge fan of video games with a horror setting, but I'm being totally honest here, this feels like a pretty good game. This is one, when I have more time, I will definitely be back and play through more, and I think maybe, if you have it in your collection or you don't mind emulating, should give it a try yourself. Just don't rush out and spend $200+ on it. I haven't gotten far enough to defend that price point, and I don't know if I even could. So guys, that's part 2 of horror movie video games. I think I have one more left in me, so if there's any other horror movie video games that you would like to see me cover before Halloween Havoc is over that I haven't covered in the first 2 videos, let me know in the comments down below, and hopefully it'll make it into horror movie video games part 3. I really hope you guys have enjoyed this series. I'm a huge fan of horror movies and I'm a huge fan of video games, so it just goes so well together. And I've really enjoyed sharing this with you. I hope you've enjoyed watching it. Before I sign off today, I do want to say one very special thing. I have a friend out there by the name of Ricardo. You guys might not know this, but every year Ricardo holds this big horror movie trivia contest at his house, and you got to see his house. Like, he decorates it like crazy. It's something right out of a horror movie. It's amazing. And every year Ricardo reaches out to me and asks if I can basically record a special opening for his horror movie trivia contest that he holds. And I've been doing it for the last like 3 or 4 years, I think, Ricardo, right? Anyways, because of COVID this year, or the pandemic, Ricardo isn't going to be holding it, and he asked for me to send him along a special video. And I said, I'll do one better. Because I can't do the video for your normal thing, I'll give you a shout out on this video. So Ricardo, that video right then, Horror Movie Video Games Part 2, is dedicated to you, my brother. I hope this makes up for the fact that you don't get to do your big trivia contest this year. Brings a little smile to your face. Anyways, everybody else, thank you very much for watching. This is Michael B. the Game Genie. I'll talk to you next time.